for today, we want to dig into multifamily loans and what it takes to get one of these loans approved. I've had several conversations with people where they're saying like, this is not quite understanding what's required on this commercial side of real estate when it comes to getting the deal approved. So today, after the end of this webinar, I want you to have everything that you need to know when it comes to the process, getting your multifamily loan approved. What do you need to do? What are the loan terms? How do you get them? How do you put these projects together? How do you get your deals funded? All of that. So we want to cover that and probably a lot more too. So if you have questions, if you showed up here today and you wanted to make sure that you had some missing information when it comes to multifamily loans answered, go ahead and just drop that in the chat. I want to make sure that you get those questions answered. Also, where are y'all calling in from today? So if you joined on Zoom, if you're here on Facebook Live, just go ahead and put where you are streaming from today. Let's see where the reach has gotten to. Maybe good old fashioned and local, right? So a couple of minutes before we get into it, I guess let me start with a brief introduction because we may have some people who are new. Who am I? Why am I talking to you? You know, why would you even listen? Let's see what happens with that. Hopefully I'll share some valuable information for you that you could take and go from this meeting out into the real world and actually apply it. My name is Jason Stubblefield. I'm with RIL Properties here in the Atlanta, Georgia area. I've been buying multifamily real estate since 2016, done quite a few of these loans. And today we're going to be talking all about it. If you want to know more about our company and sort of what we are doing, what we have done, if you go to rilapartments.com, that's rilapartments.com. And it looks, can y'all hear me? Am I having technical issues today? Okay. I'm like on top of the morning. I think I'm good. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. So are you able to see my screen? If you are, you should be looking at the homepage, rilapartments.com. That's rilapartments.com. Here you can find out more about us, some of the projects, what we've done. This is, nobody's saying anything. Can you all see my screen or are you looking at something crazy right now? I got to check it. I'm just going to go through like you can. If you go to rilapartments.com.
We can see that YouTube.
What was that?
We can see a YouTube. We can see a YouTube window.
That's what you don't want to look at right now. On the other side of my screen, I'm watching that guy help me fix my internet issues. That's what I thought was happening, but I wasn't quite sure. Let me share this screen. Thank you, Sierra, for that. I appreciate it. All right, now you should be looking at my home screen. Gotta love having the dual monitors. I've been out a week and I'm rusty. I feel it. All right, I'm gonna get it together though. Stick with me. rilapartments.com. If you go here, you can see more about our company, what we've done, some of our projects, learn about our investment strategy a little bit. So check us out there if you want to know more. Also, if you want to hear about the investments that we have coming forward, click on that Invest Now button. That will take you to a brief form. You fill out that form, puts you in our world. That way you are hearing about our projects as they come out. We got some pretty cool projects coming up and some LOIs going out in the near future. So you definitely want to make sure that you are registered for that. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Sierra, for catching me up. Now let's go ahead and dig into it. Let me just start this off with a brief story. When I first got started, my very first multifamily deal, I had this beautiful binder, right? Because I was going to get my first apartment loan. So I had this beautiful binder that I put together. And in this binder, I had my tax returns. They were all laid out. I had my pay stubs, came in from a W-2 job, and I was about to go get an apartment loan. And all this was put together. It was pristine. I had lenders that were telling me, they said they wished that they had every loan package that looked like mine. And so I tried to go get approval on my first apartment loan, and this beautiful binder got me about 8 no's on my first loan. I just kept bringing it in there, and I kept getting told no, and I kept getting told no, and I kept getting told no, and I had no idea what the hell I was doing wrong. And so it took me a while till I figured this out. I spoke with one lender, and he told me his inhibitions about the project. Said, I don't have any idea if this project is going to be around in 10 years or not, and we don't want to fund it. And I had no idea what the missing link was until he said that. And then I realized that he had no idea what my plan was with the property. And that is because I just went asking for the loan. I didn't tell them my idea and my plan with the property. This was a beat up, distressed property. And so I was going to do a pretty large rehab on it. But I didn't communicate that, right? This is just some of the growing pains that comes with not knowing what you're going to do with these loans. So let's go ahead and dig into it about what you need to know when it comes to an apartment loan versus a single family loan, right? In a single family loan, they are checking the borrower first and then the property second. All right. Reverse that for commercial. It goes with the property first, and then we're going to get to the borrower second. And so this sort of makes sense when you think about it, right? If you go to get a single family loan, before you even have a property, they want to give you a pre-approval because they're approving you, right? So they want to see your finances, your pay stubs, whatever that is, to make sure that you're qualified as a borrower. But in commercial world, they want to see information on the property first and then the borrower, right? And so throughout this conversation, I'm going to be talking to you about various types of commercial loans. So we got agency loans. That's your Fannie Mae, your Freddie Mac loans. These are loans that are backed by government dollars, right? And so these are going to get you the best rates, but they're also going to come with the most stipulations, and they're going to be a little bit more stringent than maybe some other products that we'll cover, right? We also have local banks, small banks, and think about this as your local lender. Is not one of the big banks like a Wells Fargo, Bank of America, something like that. No, this is like a community bank, basically, right? And they have their own money that they loan out. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And also you have hard money lenders. Yes, you can do hard money loans on apartment complexes. So just understand the different types of multifamily loans, because as we get into this a little bit more, we'll start talking about how these different criteria apply to the type of a loan that you're going to get. All right, so let's get into the qualifications of a multifamily loan. Right. First off, we're going to start with the debt coverage ratio, or the debt service coverage ratio. Again, we're starting with the property first. Right. So if you want to qualify for a loan, it's going to be based off the DCR or the DSCR. Those get used interchangeably, so don't get confused by the acronyms there. Right. This is based off of cash flow. All right. So how much money is coming in from this property? And based off the money that's coming in from the property, the bank is going to determine how much of these funds they're willing to loan. All right. Usually, you're going to see numbers around 1.25 times the cash flow. All right. So to keep that math simple, whatever your loan terms are for the year, the bank wants you to make 1.2, could be 1.25 times that number in income to make sure that you've got a cushion. Said another way, they want you to make 20% more than what you have to pay them to make sure that you've got enough money there to cover, right? If you had a 1% debt coverage ratio, that means that every dollar that comes in goes right to the bank and you don't make any money. So they look for that 20% buffer, right? To give you an example, if you bought $1 million property and there was a $5,000 a month loan, there would be, $12,000 in, sorry, I think my math is all wrong. Yeah, that would be $60,000 in revenue per year. And then they would want to see you make 1.2 times that, right? So you want to make sure that the NOI, after all the bills are paid, that you have that amount of income coming in, right? And the higher the DSCR, the higher that number is, whether it's 1.2 or 1.5 or 1.6, the higher that number is, the safer the bank thinks the loan is. So the safer they think the loan is, the more proceeds that you'll be able to get. Okay, does that make sense? Y'all are with me? Okay. So now let's roll into loan to value. All right. And then if you have any questions about this, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'll double back and try to make sure I answer all this at the end. But you also have the loan to value, which typically is going to be somewhere between 60 to 80%, depending on the loan. Now, this comes into play based off the DSCR as well. Jason, what do you mean? A lender may tell you we'll loan up to 80% of the property value. Okay, great. But you would be wrong if you just assumed you're going to get 80%. Why? Because the DSCR, if the property doesn't make enough income to support getting to the maximum lender loan proceeds, whatever that loan to value is, then you will be restricted. So for those who are joining me from Facebook, you may have saw a post I made, and I talked about one of the deals that we closed a couple years ago. On that deal, we got about 78% loan to value. And that number seems sort of weird. It's like, why is the bank giving you 78%? That is the reason. It's because our debt service coverage ratio was not strong enough to support the whole 80%. All right. So when that's not there, you get the lower value. Mainly they come down and give you the maximum proceeds based off your debt service coverage ratio. So said another way, in order for them to loan you money and for your NOI to be at 1.2 or 1.25, the what they're looking for in the debt service coverage ratio, they have to lower your amount of proceeds to get to that number. Right. So you may not always get 80% maximum loan to value. It might be 78%, it might be 70, 60, 65, or whatever. And this is huge when you come into underwriting properties. And mistakes that a lot of people make is they just hear bank terms and say, okay, I can get 80%. And then they underwrite their deal and just assume that you're going to get 80%. Well, if you don't know what your debt service coverage ratio is, you may not get that full 80%. And if we're talking about multi-million-dollar loans, now you run into the risk of having to bring additional capital. Right, this could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of additional money that you'll need just because the loan value has been decreased by a few percentage points, maybe 5 percentage points. Okay, so know that. I think that's clear, right? We want to move on to the borrower. Now, for you, as you are doing your loan, they're going to look at the borrower second. Okay, what does that mean? You have two phases of a loan process. I call it the before application or pre-application, and then you have after application. All right. So pre-app, the bank is going to ask you for a statement of real estate owned, and they're going to want to see your personal financial statement or your liquidity and net worth requirements. After you do an application, that's when it's going to come into your personal credit a little bit. Your FICO score, do you have any judgments against you? Bankruptcies that have been filed, stuff like that. So let's just talk about those a little bit more in depth. The statement of real estate owned, when you show up to a lender, they're sort of sizing you up, right? Can you buy this property? Have you bought other properties like this? So they'll ask you for a statement of real estate owned. What this is a list of the properties that you own. Right? That could be your single family. It could be multifamily. It could be a combination of both. And they also want to see your liquidity net worth. How valuable are you? And so the reason that they do that is because a lot of banks want to see that you have liquidity and net worth in excess of what you're doing for the loan. So let's say if you're doing $1 million loan, they want to see that you have net worth of $1 million. And they usually want some amount of capital to be liquid, right? So they want to see your liquidity, your bank statement saying that, okay, you have money in an account so that if you had to make the payments on this loan yourself, you could do that for a period of time. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 12 months, maybe it's somewhere in between. But the bank wants to see that prior to you getting your approval. So if you've stuck with me for a while, you know that I've covered this in other meetings, right? How do you work around this? And the way you work around it, if you don't have the liquidity or the net worth, then you find somebody, what you call a key principal, to help sign on the loan for you. But also note that it depends on the type of loan that you're doing. If you're doing an agency loan, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loan, this is locked in stone. They're going to want to see that. They're going to check all those boxes, and liquidity and net worth is definitely going to be required. But what about the other two, right? What about if you're doing just a commercial bank, smaller bank? What if you're doing a hard money loan? This is where it gets to be a little tricky, right? So you may not know. What I advise you to do is if you're not going to Freddie Mae or Fannie Mac, okay, if you're going to Freddie or Fannie, don't even worry about it. They're going to require you to have liquidity and net worth. But if you're going to another lender, what I do is mainly just go to them and present your information to them, and then allow them to respond with what you need, right? Loan officers get paid off of doing loans. So oftentimes they'll guide you and just say, okay, you don't have enough liquidity and net worth. Okay, let me go find a partner. But you also may find out that you have what it takes. This is how I got my first loan done. I had no idea that liquidity and net worth was even a requirement. But once I submitted the application, it was there. And it happened on me on the second loan as well. So in those smaller banks, if you're just dealing with a small bank, oftentimes you may be able to fly. So submit your materials, see the response that you get, and then say, hey, what do I need to do a loan like this? Okay. This is why it's important for you to know the type of property and have a relationship with a lender or two prior to doing your deal. Okay. So you know what you need. All right. So that's the pre-app. Right? Statement of real estate owned, liquidity, net worth. After that, you're going to do a formal application. And this is where it gets more like your residential loan, right? Where they want to see, they care about your FICO score, probably want to see you somewhere around a 660 or above, no bankruptcies, no judgments. And if you are in a position where you have bad credit, a lot of people say like, hey, you can do this. You don't need any money down. You don't need any credit, right? You can just go buy multifamily. It's true, but here's a caveat to it. You're going to need a partner who does have a FICO score, who does have money and liquidity. So make sure that you know that as you go into this. Documentation. Okay, so when you're going in to get a loan, the bank is going to want to verify the income of the property. So you want to be able to show them things like T12, that's trailing 12 months of cash flow, right? The bank wants to see how profitable this property is. You want to have a rent roll, you have that, and you want to have your pro forma, right? And pro forma, it means like your projections of future income of this property. If you don't know how to do that, then you obviously need to figure that out prior to going to get a loan. Now, it's not required, but this is one of the things I screwed up. When I talked with the lender, when I finally arrived at a lender who was going to approve the loan, he said, you need to send me your pro forma. And I said, okay, no problem. I'll send that right over. And I hung up the phone. And then I Googled, what the hell is a pro forma? Because I had no idea. I was like, oh, okay, I need to tell them what I'm going to do with this. Okay. This is how naive I was, but you're listening to this. So hopefully you won't do the same thing. But go to them with the pro forma. Now, what are they going to do with that? The lender has an idea of the property, but you want to be able to share with them your idea of the property too. Okay. So what the mistake I made in that first loan was I was just going to the lender, not telling them what I planned to do, not telling them that I was going to renovate the property, not telling them what the future rents would be. And they were just going to give me a loan off of what was there right now. And they didn't like it. When I gave them a pro forma, now they said, okay, these rents can go up to X amount now, and he's going to renovate the property. So that's when I became fundable, or the project became fundable. Okay, that was huge. You want to share your pro forma with the lender just to make sure that you all are thinking along the same lines, because the lender, they don't know this right up hand. They don't know if you're going to renovate the property or not. So you want to be able to show them what you plan on doing so that you can get the maximum loan proceeds flowing into you. All right. So what happens if you come in and you have a deal with crappy financials? This is why I love commercial real estate, because it's all based off the numbers. And you will find, especially in the smaller properties, that there are some owners who just have crappy financials, right? The numbers back of the napkin, they don't really know how much money the property makes. If that happens, it's going to be harder for you to get funding on that deal. But it's beneficial to you because everybody who's getting a loan on it is going to have the same struggle. So you can do a couple of things if you know that, right? You can negotiate a better deal and simply tell the seller, hey, I can't get funding on this because your financials are trash. So you either need to take a lower price, or you may want to get creative with that owner and say, hey, give me a master lease or something. Let me get your financials together, operate it for a few months or 6 months or a year or something, and then I'll get a loan and take you out, right? There's multiple things that you can do, but just understand that going into your loan, that they're going to want to see the financials, and it's based off the numbers. So getting those financials, those numbers, are how you want to get approved. All right. So the closing process. All right, let's talk about this. You've got your pre-app. You've given them statement of real estate owned, whether it's your own or whether it's you and the partners, right? You've given them the documentation of the property, T12, cash flow, rent roll, etc. Now, what does it take to actually close a loan, right? In the commercial world, you're looking at 45 days plus in order to get a loan completely closed. All right. You may hear people say that they can do it in 30 days. I've never had a commercial loan closed in 30 days. I've heard about them, but it's highly unlikely. And you need to know that because if you're doing your first multifamily deal, and I saw this a few weeks ago, someone was doing a commercial real estate deal, put in their contract that they were going to close in 30 days and had earnest money that was potentially going hard. And I quickly told them, you need to kill that contract because you can lose all of your earnest money because you're not going to be able to close a commercial loan in 45 days, right? And so let's sort of walk through the steps of what happens during the closing process, right? Step one, you're going to send them financials. Step two, you're going to submit an application, right? And you're not going to submit an application until you actually have a property under contract. So the way we do it, we send the financials to the bank and we want them to respond with their terms. Now that we have solid terms, now we'll submit our best offer to get the deal. And once we get the deal, now we're going to come and submit an application. That application, depending on what lender that you are using, can come with a fee, right? This is different than the residential space. So as you do a commercial loan, they may ask you for $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 in the application fee. It depends on the size of the deal you're doing. Why is that? You have legal costs. They're going to engage legal. They're also going to engage third parties. Remember, the bank is using this property as their, not sole collateral, but it's their collateral. And so they evaluate the property too. They're going to hire third parties. They're going to do an appraisal. They're going to do phase one, potentially a phase two, right? Termite inspection. So they collect some of that money from you up front. So just know that as you go in. And this is where I like being realistic because there's a lot of people saying, hey, well, you can buy a deal, no money. Well, somebody's got to do the application fee. Okay. Just understand that. Next, they're going to review your borrower credit. That's when you submit all the paperwork on you. After that's done, then they'll start ordering all those fees that I discussed earlier, right? And from there, they're going to review the entity documents. So if you did use a key principal and now you have somebody signing on the loan, or you establish a partnership and y'all are buying this together, the bank is going to want to see the entity that is buying the property. Who is this? Who are these people behind it? So the way we do it, we don't really form the entity until after we have the property under contract. You'll want to do the same thing, but just understand that you have to have that paperwork there in order for you to get approved, right? So after they got all that information, the next step, well, then they'll send you to loan committee, all right? And so loan committee, they review it. That's going to take a week, 2 weeks while you're in the review process. Once that's done, they'll come back and you'll get approval, or they could ask you for more documentation. Who's the person behind that entity? We've had stuff, just weird stuff, right? They look at some of your financials, they look at your credit report. What's this, right? Just be prepared that the bank may come to you and ask you for more information, right? After you do that, then you want to do a rate lock. All right. This is important because up until this point, you've got a 45, 60-day transaction. So they don't lock your rate in the very beginning. You may not lock this rate until right before closing. In some instances, depending on the lender, you might be able to do it a few weeks before closing, but you haven't locked the rate yet. Okay, so you're gonna lock a rate at some point, and then once you do that, now you're ready for closing. Okay, and that rate lock period, things can change. So this is the purpose of having a strong contract, because especially think about what happened roughly a year ago, right? If you had 60-day window, we got caught in this too, where you have a contract, and by the time you negotiate the contract and actually get ready to close, interest rates have gone up considerably, and that debt service coverage ratio still holds true. So now your mortgage payments have gone up. So that means the property needs to make more, but the property isn't making more. So that just means your loan proceeds have to go down. All right, understand all this is a balancing act. So we got caught like that. I mean, it was to the tune of, I want to say like $500,000 in proceeds. They got wiped out almost overnight just because interest rates changed. All right, so understand that you have not locked your rate yet, right? After you do get a rate lock, then it's going to be time for the final closing documents. You send that out, you review that, make sure it's all fine and dandy, right? The money's going where it's supposed to go. Your closing costs are completely accounted for, or if you have any questions about that, no different than single family. And then closing. And closing happens in commercial world relatively easy, right? The last few deals that we've done, they just overnight documents to me. I sign them, overnight them back to the title company and wire funds. And that's it. Do it from the comfort of my own home. So that's multifamily loans in a nutshell. I didn't get a lot of questions. I was on a roll there, but either that was just crazy good and y'all got it all, or or y'all zoned out, one of the other ones. So we'll see. Now I'll check for questions right now. Sierra says, thanks for the great content. Appreciate you, Sierra. How hard and fast are liquid and net worth requirements for smaller multifamily loans? 4 units. Okay. Yep. Back up to the very beginning. If you're talking about 4 units and under, that's really considered residential. So it's for the most part based off of your personal credit. Okay. What could also happen is they have a new product, what they call, it's not that new actually, but DSCR loans, right? So DSCR loans are probably where you want to go if you're looking for a 4 unit and under. And all that is mainly them taking the underwriting standards of commercial real estate and then applying it to residential real estate. So they're going to base the funds off of the DSCR. They're going to look at the income of the property. The only downside to that in residential, you don't get to play with the income and then therefore grow your property value as much by increasing rents. That's one of the downsides because they get evaluated on the comparable approach. All right. Any other questions? It's like we got nothing on Facebook.
Jason.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Jason. Just a couple of comments, since as you know, I'm a lender. A couple of helpful comments. That was very good, by the way. First of all, the agency loans are going to be non-recourse, SOC, MBS, and a local bank loan is probably going to have some recourse. On a hard money lender is going to want your firstborn. Okay.
Yeah.
And then just a couple things. If you do have some baggage or some dents on your career, whatever, just tell the lender up front. I mean, we're used to seeing stuff, but if you get ahead of it with the lender, you'll go a long way towards building the relationship because they're going to find out anyway. So if you had something happen to you then go ahead and write up a letter of explanation for what happened, how it happened, and so that they know that you're being straightforward. Also, I would just say that in your if you're going to Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, then obviously you're not going to have a depository relationship with them. But one of the selling points for any lender is that if Jason has a $5 million property, he's probably going to have, I don't know, how much would the monthly rents be on that, Jason? Quite a bit. Yep. So you're going to have a really good depository relationship with the bank, and you don't want to shortchange yourself, but you want to tell the bank that I'm going to be bringing in $2 million a year in deposits into your bank, because banks are valued based on deposits nowadays. If they're still going to be around in 12 months, I can't comment on that. But if you're going to tell the bank that I'm going to bring $2 million a year into your bank on a depository relationship, that is a selling point for why a bank would want to do that loan with you. That's another little bonus tip there. And then in terms of your projections, be conservative. I mean, you may be able to increase the rents by 30, 40%. But if it works by only increasing them 15 to 20%, then kind of give the lender 3 scenarios: best case, worst case, and probable case. And I think that that just shows that you really did your homework. So from a lender standpoint, those are just some things that can really help you build rapport with the lender. Also, that depository relationship is really big for lenders. So don't just not sell the loan officer on how much you're going to bring in deposits. And then, also one thing just on a contract from the seller, I just don't start my clock on when the loan application has to be made until I get all the documents that I need from the seller. Then the clock starts or most of them. Then the clock starts in terms of when I have to close. That puts the seller, in high gear to get you the documents you need, instead of doing Chinese water torture where you're getting, a few documents here and there, and it just drives you crazy. And also, if you're a lender, don't give them partial packages. That they won't look at them. Give them a full package. They may be missing a few things, but like Jason said, did such a great job. Have a checklist. There's plenty of checklists out there. Get the checklist from the lender if you want before you even send a package over, so that you can make his job easy, because nothing's worse than having to call people up for this or that. It's a waste of their time. So make it easy for them to say yes to you. So those are just my comments. Sorry, it's a little long-winded, but I think those comments are really helpful, looking at it from a lender standpoint for you guys who haven't done it before.
Jim, no, that's solid, man. You're always welcome to comment, because you've always got useful information to provide to the group, right? And so I think that's huge. One thing that didn't touch on that much is just the differences in those loans, right? Whether it's non-recourse or recourse. Make sure that you know that. I mean, non-recourse is definitely the way you want to go. Even though sometimes to get a deal done, you may want to sign a recourse loan. I've done it myself, but you just want to know what you're doing in that scenario. Did not think about those deposits though, and that is huge, right? If you can tell a bank, hey, I'm bringing X amount of dollars, I'm going to put it in your bank account if you do this loan, that could sway. We did a deal like that. We went to a local bank trying to get funding, but I did not use that. Mainly didn't use that as a selling point. They gave us some terms that weren't that great, so we went somewhere else. But maybe if I had to whip that out and told them, hey, I'll leave all the deposits here, maybe they got better terms. So that's good. But what Jim is getting at is, like, once you start talking to the smaller banks, it's very much negotiable, even in the terms of recourse and non-recourse. So you can also negotiate whether you have complete recourse or partial recourse, or even getting 2 sets of terms, right? Here's recourse terms or here's non-recourse terms. So you may want to look at that. Okay. So let's go to, I see a couple of Facebook questions, like, are there online places to seek out checklists for commercial loan packages? They're with the lender. If it's online, it's just going to be on the lender's website. So just know some lenders, know some mortgage brokers, and then they'll be able to guide you in the right direction. Cool. Yep. And Jim also says that recourse can burn off too. Yes, you can have partial recourse. Recourse for a few years until you get the finances up, and then it goes non-recourse, or you pay off a certain amount of the debt. All right, cool. Well, thank y'all. See no more questions in. I appreciate you. Back at it now. We took a break in action, but I'm back, and hopefully you all found this helpful. Have a great weekend, and I will see you all next week. Take care.